started this whole wedding dress adventure wanting to recreate the dress I had originally tried when I was at wedding dress shopping. Of course I didn't have a pattern for it, so I had to start somewhere. I bought a commercial pattern for a strapless bodice and then kind of worked from that. I'd already determined that the skirt was some kind of circle skirt, so I didn't need a specific pattern for that. I just needed an online calculator to find out the estimates of what that would look like. So most of the patterning work I did to recreate the bodice and the straight flounce, or I'm not sure what to call this piece of the dress, but the straight over the shoulder bit. This is actually fabric left over from when I made my prom dress 10 years ago, which a blast from the past, to be honest. It's the same type of polyester satin that I ended up making the actual dress in, so this gave me a very realistic view of what it would look like. Another mock-up. I actually bought so much of this fabric and it was so relatively cheap that I ended up making a mock-up of the bodice in the actual fabric. So the basic bodice pattern I bought was longer than I needed it to be, but it was a starting point, so I started just making it the way it was intended, and then I quickly figured out I needed to shorten it to fit my waist better, and I also had to take it up higher. In order to accommodate the flounce going around my shoulders, I needed the dress to actually go to where I wanted that to start, so that there would be some kind of support for it. So I raised it up quite a lot in the front and also in the back. Here I have one of the first mock-ups I made. Not the very first one. I made 2 or 3 in just some random fabric I had lying around, but I've already pulled those to pieces, but this is the first one I actually kept. You can see up here how I extended the neckline and made it a lot higher, adding some more. I also, in this one, played around with internal boning channels. I still have bones actually in these two, I think. Most of the time I repurpose the material, so I would pull it out and use it again. Otherwise, it's a pretty basic pattern. You can see the original side zipper here, or the opening for the side zipper, and 3 panels in the back, and then 5 panels in the front. I have here some other side front panels where I must have altered the curve, I think, to fit me better, and also to accommodate the higher neckline, of course. I think I was mostly satisfied with the fit from this one. I definitely did later go in and alter the bust curve. I'm not very busty, and this was still too curvaceous for me. So I definitely flattened out this seam here. I also played around with interfacing at this point. I had bought some just standard iron-on interfacing. It's not something I've worked with a whole lot, and I was having a really hard time getting the glue to melt sufficiently and not giving me bubbles. And I did a ton of research. I watched YouTube videos and like how to press it, like pressing up and down, but I just wasn't getting the look I wanted, and it looked not good. Honestly, it didn't look good. But I mean, this has been lying folded up, which hasn't helped, but I don't know if you can see, but I never got the glue to properly adhere. Or to properly melt, so it hasn't adhered very well, and I got all of these bubbles. So I mean, the stiffness and the structure is fine, but I really didn't like the look of it. So I've watched a lot of Bernadette Banner and like that side of YouTube, and I mean, I've never tried to recreate anything historical ever, but I've watched enough that I have gathered in through osmosis that there are other ways to do stuff. So the fabric on its own, it wasn't stiff enough. It needed more structure than it had. So I used a lining layer. I had some just plain, tightly woven cotton in my stash, which I thought we'll give it a go. And it worked out really, really well. So I ended up flatlining the fashion fabric with this cotton, and it did what I wanted the interfacing to do, but couldn't get it to do. It gave it a lot more structure and hold. I did also line it to cover up the rest of the raw edges. I really wanted this to be a well-made garment and to have a nice finish. Trying it on and fiddling around with it, I quickly realized also that I wanted some more support in the bust region. So I bought a bra secondhand and pulled it to pieces. So I just had the foam bra cups and I hand stitched them in. It was a bit... Making clothes for yourself is always a bit awkward. The fitting and the trying it on and trying to pin on your body. I don't have a dress form, so all of this was done on myself, and then I had people help me with like pinning stuff in the back. My husband was a huge help, my mother as well. But adding the bra cups really helped give me some more bust support and also just make the whole thing look a lot more smooth. The strapless bodice pattern I had bought also had boning channels sewn to the lining fabric, so I played around with how I wanted to do that, but I ended up really liking the look of having the boning channels visible on the outside. I tested out my external boning channels here, so you can see some internal down here where I definitely added them to the lining, but I really wanted to see how it would look if I stitched them through, and I definitely liked how this looked. I was also considering whether or not I should do a boning channel on each side of every seam. I ended up only doing them on one side and thought that was support enough. I did notice I have a wide panel in the front, and I did notice a lot of extra bubbling, and it just wasn't laying as flat as I wanted to over the stomach. So I ended up in the lining layer adding extra bones for support along the front, and if I had thought this through I probably would have added them the whole way around. So in the middle of each panel there's a small bone in the bottom now that just gives the bottom of the bodice a lot more structure. I think that turned out really well. The original pattern for the bodice also had a side zipper closure, which I was intending to keep, but there was this whole issue with timing and size. So initially I was playing around with the thought of, okay, but when is the last possible moment where I can start the dress and finish the dress and make sure it fits me, whatever size I'll be at that point. But I realized that who knows what size I'm going to be at that point, and who knows if after I make the dress I could change sizes again. So the thought just stressed me out about having to create something so well-fitting. And I mean, if I needed to alter it, I would have to open up a bunch of seams and do a lot of work. And I thought making the whole dress more size adjustable would also mean that if I had a large dinner, which I mean, we're planning a 4-course menu, there's gonna be a lot of food, I could do that. Lovely scrap fabric here. I tried playing around with adding bra closures to see how that would do. I just got a lot of awkward tugging. I couldn't quite figure out where to put them. And also those whole, I mean, you still have to have a nicely closed edge. Like, where does that go? To accommodate changing sizes, I decided to change the closure from the side zipper to a lace-up panel in the back instead. And I'm really, really happy I chose to do this. It looks so good. I'd never done hand-sewn eyelets before, but I decided that was the method I wanted to use, so I got myself an awl, and let me tell you, this was a struggle. The poly satin doesn't want to separate, and I had 2 layers of the poly satin and my cotton interlining, so I ended up having to like poke through each layer individually and then kind of line them up. But I hand-stitched all of the eyelets, and I mean, they're not perfect, but they look really, really good. So I decided to make it detachable. The flounce has to come off. It just wouldn't function for me otherwise. And it's really simple, actually. So it's just a separate piece, completely finished on its own. I have snaps in the front and I have snaps in the back, and then the flounce just snaps onto the bodice and it works. In terms of drafting the flounce, I was thinking that either it was probably not a straight cut piece. I was basing this completely off of the dress I had tried on in store, and it probably wasn't a straight cut piece. I thought it had to have some kind of curve. So I tested it out on a scrap piece of fabric. My mother helped me that day, like pinning it onto my mock-up number something to see how it laid. And we actually ended up inverting it. So it was cut like this and then we put it on upside down. That's my dishwasher. That's gonna keep beeping. Hold that thought. Talking to the camera is still so intimidating. Coming back to film the rest of this video 4 months later. So to finish off the flounce adventures. Like the bodice, I had played around with interlining, but I really didn't like how it looked on the flounce either. But I ended up just using that piece as the lining piece, and then I cut an identical one for the actual front. I machine sewed 3 of the sides, right sides together, flipped it over, understitched it so it looked neat, and then the top edge I ended up hand sewing so I could get like a really clean, nice finish. It worked. It attaches pretty easily. I was also right in the prediction that I cannot move my arms in it, and fun fact, I ended up not wearing it at the wedding at all. But that's a story for a different time. Stay tuned for that. It did look beautiful though, and it definitely matched my inspiration picture, so I'm really proud of myself for being able to recreate it, even if I did end up going in a different direction. A final note on some other touches I added to the bodice. When I tried it on and kind of waved my arms around, there was a bit of a bearing of midriff, which I wasn't quite a fan of. Because it was a 2-piece, I actually added hooks in the front inside of the bodice so I could hook it onto the skirt. I sewed matching thread bars so I could somewhat connect the 2 pieces, but I will say that adding those 2 hooks it wasn't enough to completely keep them from slipping apart, but it definitely made me feel more secure in the whole construction. Somewhere in this process, I realized that designing and sewing and creating my own dress meant making my own dress. So I decided to add straps to the bodice. But you'll have to stay tuned to hear all about strap making shenanigans in the next part of this series coming very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.